Thank you for joining our webinar entitled The Text and Data Mining Functionalities of the PoolParty Semantic Suite. This webinar is co-organized by Ames and Agronom, and it is offered by the Horizon 2020 funded Open Minted project. Just a few quick notes before we begin. The webinar will be recorded and the link will be shared with all participants at a later time. The presentation will be followed by a Q&A session where you will have the opportunity to type your questions in the chat box down on the right of your screen. And I will speak the question to our presenters. And your contributions will be covered by the presenters at the end of the presentation. A couple of words for our presenters. Martin Kaltenbeck is co-founder and managing partner of the Semantic Web Company, leading and working in several national and international research and industry projects. Martin, sorry if I mispronounced your last name. And Timea Turdean is working at Semantic Web Company as well as a technical consultant with special focus on text mining and text analysis solutions, as well as text extraction and fact extraction mechanisms, and many more things that you will see during their presentations. So I hand over now the microphone to Martin and Timea for the presentation. And again, thank you all for joining this webinar.
Thank you very much, Maritina, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Martin Kaltenberg of Semantic Web Company. I'm here together with my colleague
Timea Turdean. Hello.
Hello. Yeah. So very happy to welcome you to this webinar of AIMS. And I hope you can all see very well our slides. So what will happen, what to expect in the next 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes before we go into question and answering. We go into a short introduction of Semantic Web Company, and for sure PoolParty Semantic Suite, that is our core product, and that is in the core of this webinar. And then I hand over to my colleague Timea, and she will explain but also show you the capability of PoolParty in the area of text and data mining in 3 areas. On the one hand side, in regards to knowledge graph modeling. The second area is entity linking and data integration, as you see on the screen. Also, the third one will be classification and semantic annotation, semantic tagging. She will do a presentation on how that works in PoolParty, and then we will show you, or she will show you, some demos so that you see it live, and we also provide the links. You can play with it and also test it out later on. Yes, the final step, then I will take over from Timea again, and we'll give you some insights into customer success stories. We have selected 4 of them. We will see how far we can get with the time we have. So one is the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Partnership, an international organization, NGO, located here in Vienna. And they have built a system on top of PoolParty called Climate Tagger. Our second success story for today will be healthdirect Australia. As the name says, it's an organization located in Australia, in Sydney. Then we have CTCN with semantic search. And finally, if we can go there, the European Innovation Partnership on Water by DG Environment of the European Commission, that are using PoolParty in a portal environment for matchmaking facilities. And then hopefully you have a lot of questions, and we're very happy to discuss with you and answer them. So let's go ahead. About the company and about the product. So we're on the market since 2004. We're in Vienna in Austria. That is where we also are today and where we are at the moment. We are privately held, and we are around 40 people, and all of us are, as the name says, experts in the area of semantic web and semantic web technologies. And semantic technologies means text mining, linked data, linked open data, but we also have a strong open data focus, for example. You see that we have a strong focus also here in research and development, and we have an annual growth at the moment around of 20%. And we're very happy that this year again, after the previous 2 years, we are named of Knowledge Management World's one of the 100 companies that matter in knowledge management. That's a US media that is giving that prize or that list away for every year. Some of you may know the Semantics Conference. We are organizing Semantics Conference since 13 years in the meantime. We had the last one, or 2017, was in Amsterdam last week together with a Free University and TNO, the Research Center of the Netherlands, with around 300 people. And I would say it was a very nice event next year in September. Again, we will be in Vienna, so maybe if you're interested, just join in. Product, PoolParty Semantic Suite as a semantic middleware is released in 2009. At the moment we're running in 6.0 version. Very important thing is that we are fully W3C standards compliant, so we build on SCOS and RDF standards and all semantic web standards and the semantic web layer cake. At the moment we have a little bit more than 200 installations worldwide. That means a mix on the one hand side of on-premise installations at customer premises, or also cloud services that are used that we are providing. And also PoolParty has been listed as a trend-setting knowledge management product again in 2017, what makes us very proud. Customers and partners. So on the left-hand side, I won't go through that, but you see that we are working for I would say a colorful mix of organizations from very heterogeneous industries and domains, a lot of pharma, a lot of health, but also a lot of international organizations. As you see here, the World Bank, for example, or the Inter-American Development Bank, and also work for United Nations and UNEP, and others in that field, or the European Commission, but also for commercial organizations. And as we are a very small organization with 40 people here in Vienna, we have to work with a very broad partner network, some of them listed on the right-hand side. And you see our main focus is where we are working in Europe for sure, and there we're headquartered, but then in UK, North America, and in Australia, New Zealand, and we have started now to make business also around Asia, around the area of Singapore since a few months. PoolParty Semantic Suite is usually used in three main areas. So the first one is data portals and collaboration platforms. Then it is very often used as for purposes of knowledge engineering and graph management. That means building up knowledge graphs from a taxonomy up to an ontology. So you really can also build ontologies and import ontologies and also taxonomies and then model them with a very intuitive user interface. And the third area is content enrichment and data integration. And in all of these areas, it's only listed here in the third one, we are making use of text mining and entity extraction. And you will hear more about that as this is the purpose of that webinar. Going further ahead, you see that PoolParty Semantic Suite has three main areas or three main components. One is the taxonomy and ontology server. I can call it also the modeling tool, where you can create or you can enrich and you can model your taxonomies and ontologies. The second one, based on the first one, is entity extraction and text linking or text mining also. So we are using the knowledge models then for entity extraction and linking of entities between text, between document, and we use it for semantic annotation then, and thereby use it for the third area that you see, that is data integration and data linking, where we are linking together unstructured data, semi-structured data, but also fully structured data and information to create somehow unified views into your information, your content, your documents, to allow search applications, to allow analytics dashboard, and so on and so forth. I will jump over that because I think here the time is running a little bit. We will need more time, but you will get the slides so you can take a look at the system architecture. What is important is that we are working, we call it a 360-degree views over various content repositories. The ones you see below are some examples where PoolParty Semantic Suite is integrated as a semantic middleware, for example, SharePoint, Alfresco, or Drupal content management system. And on top of that, we are fetching out the information, or we are analyzing the information on top of a metadata layer. We are interlinking then metadata and data through a semantic layer that you see here on top. And then on top for sure we have applications. So usually we have a 3 to 4 layer of content architecture in our systems. And to finalize the first step here into Semantic Web Company and PoolParty, you got a short elevator pitch. What is important? We are a semantic middleware, so very rich APIs, RESTful APIs. You can integrate the software relatively easily into your stack, into your content management system, into your media asset management system, or whatever. We have been investing a lot in user friendliness, so user interfaces, users experience in the area of modeling, but also in the in other areas you will see afterwards. We are fully standards compliant, as said before, mainly the W3C semantic layer cake, semantic web cake, entity extraction, comprehensive APIs, as said before, and you can put or you can realize a lot of powerful use cases and applications on top of PoolParty, making use of it to build a semantic layer and a centralized metadata layer between all data silos that you have, or just one system or more system, and so on and so forth. Final one, we have in principle 4 types of servers. It's all PoolParty Semantic Suite, but you can start with I would say the smallest edition that we call PoolParty Basic Server, and then stepwise you can go higher, and at the end our core, or I would say super enterprise edition, is PoolParty Semantic Integrator, allowing you to integrate a lot of data sources into a knowledge graph and build a knowledge graph, and thereby interlinking and connecting the dots of data and information silos. So that was a short introduction from my side, and I hand over to Timea to give you more information about, okay, and how does that work now?
Thank you, Martin. Let's take a look now at how does this work? How do we actually do all this? And before that, we have to talk about some basic principles. And I'll take you back to one of the slides that is similar to what Martin showed you when he talked about the 4-layered content architecture. So this is very typical if we talk about applications that build upon the semantic information architecture. And it is maybe clearer that you have the content layer, which is your CMS, for example, and then you have the metadata layer, the semantic layer, and the navigation logic. And what is not always clear is the difference between the metadata layer and the semantic layer. And I want to focus a bit on this. We have here a piece of text. It's about the Peggy Guggenheim collection in Venice, and you see highlighted some some pieces of fact, some information, and this is what we would call then the metadata, and we would like to extend upon this. So this is getting extracted. These are the facts that we are interested to see, the annotations basically. And so we have the Grand Canal, we have Venice, we have Peggy Guggenheim, the Peggy Guggenheim collection. And in Semantic Web, what actually happens is that each one of these facts has a unique identifier. And you see here some examples, just really randomly created. They are not important how they look. The idea is that they have a URI. And this URI, you can see it as an object, then has a string that we annotate or we represent with cos-pref label as Peggy Guggenheim collection. And once we have this basic factual annotation happening on your content, then we can go about it and enrich this information with external resources. Of course, we are also talking here about all these steps being done automatically by computers and not manually by people. So that's why we have to have this special representation of this data in the first place. And what you see here with pink would be, for instance, an example of how this data would get connected, linked, and enriched. So for instance, for Venice, you can represent an image. You can have an image of Venice. You can say that has landmark, the Grand Canal, or has a museum. And for instance, the Peggy Guggenheim collection is named after Peggy Guggenheim and is hosted in a museum and then the museum being connected to Venice, you get to this semantic context of this piece of text that we have annotated here. So this is how we grow from the metadata content layer to a semantic layer. And the semantic layer, what actually brings to us is this enrichment and this interlinking between the facts, the initial annotations. Yes, and once you have the metadata layer and you have the semantic layer, you apply this knowledge to documents and you enrich documents. So for instance, here in the middle you have this big node, this reference that is the identifier of the document here, of the piece of text, and then through linking to the resources that we already saw before, it gets created into a graph, the knowledge graph. Yeah? So we enrich this piece of document, adding this information, and again it's in this format because it should be machine readable, right? It has to be done automatic. So that being the basic of what is done in Semantic Web, still you have the basic problems with text mining. So if we think about working with text, then obviously you have problems with disambiguation. For example, here you have jaguar, and jaguar can be a car or it can be a cat, right? An animal. So it's the question of how can the computer then help you in a piece of content, suggest you the right type of jaguar. So this is one problem that we have to solve in text mining, in annotating data. Then you also have, of course, the synonyms. So for instance, a cat, a feline, for instance, is a synonym of cat. So you enrich the concept of a cat by also adding synonyms, or you can add translations. Cat being in English, but you can also add the Greek translation or the French translation of cat. The point is that you represent this object as the abstract concept of a cat, and then you try to contain in that one concept all the strings, the words that represent that concept of a cat. And also we have problems with polyhierarchies, which are mapped here. So for instance, this happens, or this is the case, what we call a polyhierarchy, when a concept such as jaguar has two parent concepts. So jaguar can be a cat, but it can also be a keystone species. So it's both. So it inherits somehow properties from both of these classes in a way. And this is what we call a polyhierarchy. And these are two of the main basic problems that you have to solve with text mining. And I mentioned before the knowledge model and the knowledge graph. And these are also part of the basic concepts when we talk about text mining in Semantic Web. And the component, how Martin also mentioned in PoolParty Semantic Suite, that helps us with text mining is the PoolParty extractor. And this key component that you use for text mining has in it different several components that help you with exactly these tasks and struggles that you have with text mining. And to start with the first, taxonomy based on the SCO standard. Ontologies based on RDF, schema, or OWL. Word form dictionaries, blacklist and stop words, disambiguation, domain-specific reference documents, and statistical language models. This is all part of the PoolParty extractor, and I will explain briefly some of them. We start always when we try to solve the problem of text mining in Semantic Web, we start with the knowledge model. And what you see here, and I also show later, is the PoolParty interface that helps you model your knowledge, and it is standard based. You basically model according to the SCOS properties this information. And then later exactly this information is the basis for what you would say are the annotations of your content. So first you have to create a taxonomy or a thesaurus that represents your knowledge model about a specific domain. And you can create this hierarchically, for instance, car platforms, the A series platform, the D series platform, right? So it can be really about anything. Then the next step is to create an ontology, or what we call a custom schema in PoolParty. Let's go back. So for instance, COS has some basic properties that you use to represent a specific concept or your model. And if SCOS as a model is not enough to represent this information, then you have to use ontologies. And ontologies, if you're familiar with them, they are very diverse depending on the model, depending on the domain. You can there are already ontologies in place. But in PoolParty you can also really create or map your own based really on your needs and preferences. So once you have established your knowledge model with SCOS, and you also have in the back, if you need, an ontology, then is the next step, because these two components then represent the rules of text mining and rules that can help you solve disambiguation, polyhierarchies, and so on. So what happens is that each concept has its own strings. It has a preferred label of a default language, and it has, for instance, the alternative labels are the synonyms of this word. So all this is getting packed into an index, what we call an index, which is the reference, and that is then used for doing text mining. And it represents then the rules. So what strings you create in your knowledge model will be then representing annotations in your content. And let's look, for instance, at the problem of disambiguation now. If you have a model in place and you have the rules. We are talking here about fence and the word post. The word post can be really very ambiguous. So when we look at this piece of text and we have our knowledge model, which is about fencing, is about postal services, we have to identify what are we actually considering here, which post are we talking about. And what happens with PoolParty is you basically look at the surrounding words that help you identify in which part of your knowledge model you are. So because of the fence word, which is annotated due to this purple node, fencing, then we can say that we are not talking here about the postal services, but we are talking about fencing. This is the case in which your thesaurus structure, your knowledge model, guides you to help you disambiguate, or actually helps the computer, yes, automatically disambiguate. And yes, there are other ways to improve text mining in general, especially with the PoolParty extractor. It's about having reference corpus. It's about a lot of statistical analysis that is done in the background, co-occurrences, relevancy of concepts, relevancy of terms, and all this is possible to help you then analyze your website, your PDFs, your RSS feeds, and so on. Okay, and the semantic annotation, what is it actually in the end? You have your knowledge model, you have your taxonomy ontology in place, you use the PoolParty extractor through its RESTful APIs, then you push into your content, and then at the end, with the help of the entity extraction, the results basically, you get to create meaningful applications such as semantic search, content recommendation systems, and many more applications. And this is what it is all about in the end, solving your problem in different use cases. And really quickly, if I still have some time, the whole process of setting up your knowledge model and annotating is an ongoing process, a collaborative process between the person who creates the knowledge model, the taxonomist, the integrator, the developer, and the content manager who creates then the content. And it's all like a feedback loop that helps then PoolParty learn from your input, from your users, from your content, and enrich it. And data integration in general can happen on different levels. You can use different tools that are already available, and it's all available to integrate it with PoolParty Semantic Suite, which is represented as a middleware in the end. Everything is working through APIs to just plug and play into your system and help it improve its capabilities, such as search, for example. Yeah, this is again the same more or less architecture that also Martin mentioned, and this is probably way too technical for our audience, but this is what actually has to happen in the background. It's your resources, PoolParty, a semantic middleware with a lot of additional tools that can help you do your data processing just to end up in having meaningful applications in the end. And now very quickly to some of our demos. I will jump into PoolParty. I hope you're seeing my screen. This is, for instance, let's see if we're logged out. This is the first screen that you see after you log into PoolParty. This is the login screen. And here we see a list of projects. And I will open one of the projects. For instance, this is the Eurowalk project. It's an older version of it. And on the left side, you see the tree structure of my knowledge model. So everything that Eurowalk represents is imported here in PoolParty. And I open, for instance, let's see, head of state. This is a concept. It has a unique URI. This is very semantic web basic. And then it has a preferred label in English, and then it has two synonyms. Very funny. King is one of the synonyms for this concept. And so your knowledge model grows. You can create it hierarchically. It spans over different levels, everything that makes sense, and you model your knowledge. And once you have this in place, your thesaurus, and again this is Eurowalk, then you go ahead and try to make use of it in integrations. And integrations rely heavily on the PoolParty extractor and text mining. For example, this is our Drupal demo website. You can reach it also from your location, drupal.poolparty.biz, where we showcase some of the use cases that you can have benefiting from the PoolParty extractor capabilities. You have these features represented in different tabs. But let's focus on power tagging for a moment. Power tagging is the PoolParty product that deals with annotation, annotating your content. Now we are connected to our PoolParty server that I was just showing here. So there is a PoolParty residing on this server, and it's connecting here to exactly that, and to the Eurowalk project that I was just showing. So if we load here an example text, which is about budget deficit, we can annotate, analyze this text. And I always like to show this perspective because it highlights in the text with red and yellow, and sorry, with green, the content, the relevant content. So in red you have the concepts. Concepts are what we already have in our knowledge models. So for instance, public sector, debt, voters. They are already part of this taxonomy here. So if I would search for one of them, I would find it, voter. Or, takes a bit too long. Yeah, there are several concepts that contain the word vote. And the green ones are terms that are not part of the model yet, but are still relevant for this text, and they are highlighted accordingly. Here in the scored list, you have an overview of the top most relevant concepts. Again, the concepts are the one coming from the thesaurus, from your model. And the terms are just suggestions of terms that you maybe in the future want to add in the model, to enrich the model. But this is very basic to the functionality of power tagging. And this can be applied on all the content of your content management system, for example. And that brings me to the next point, the graph search. Because after you annotated all of your content, what can you do additionally is to have a faceted search in place. And what does this mean? On the right side, you have what we call the facets. They are guided by the structure of the Eurowalk thesaurus. So politics, international relations, law, economics. You will find that they are the same concept schemes or the same names like these purple nodes in your thesaurus. So they are here on the right side. When I open one of them, I see some of the concepts under international relations. So for instance, war, refugee, peace. This content, this Eurowalk, is actually pulling in news streams from these sources. So yeah, lately the news maybe is not very positive. It's a lot about war and refugees. And the number here in brackets next to each word basically represent the number of news articles that have been annotated with refugees, for example. So if I choose refugee, then I get here in the middle the results, the articles that talk about refugee. So for instance, this one, here one of these bubbles contains refugee, this one. So that's why it appeared in the results. And then you have, of course, the search input that works as a regular search that you're all familiar with. The additional perspective of this search application is that it also allows you to search in a faceted way. So it drills down your results in the middle based on which facet, which concept you click on. So again, in order to realize this, you have to first annotate your content, either your own content, or you can tap into some news streams, for example, exactly like here. You have to have a knowledge model that guides this annotation, that guides the search facets, and then you can have such a beautiful interface of a faceted search. And by that, I would like to go back to our slides. And I'm afraid we are going to be at the beginning again. No, we're just perfectly fine. So remember, you have access from where you are located to exactly this demo website, and you can play around, check it out, drop us a line if you have questions. And I'll give it back to Martin. I hope I'm not over time alone.
Absolutely not. Thank you very much, Timmy, for amazing insights how PoolParty is working. So you're seeing we've shown you capability of modeling on the one hand side, then entity extraction and semi-automatic or automatic annotation and semantic annotation. So what Timea explained, that there is a knowledge model behind that is used to annotate automatically then the content and then put it into context, means linking content together, and that can be done with documents or news streams as we've seen, but you can also mix on the one hand side documents and on the other hand side more structured data like data sets, for example, in that perspective or with the tool PoolParty. Finalizing our webinar, before we go to question and answering, I would like to speak a little bit about use cases, about success stories. So let's go ahead. One tool that maybe somebody knows of you working in the area of climate change development or climate services, it's called the Climate Tagger. It has been established and is operated by REAP, the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Partnership, and it's more or less based on a PoolParty base layer, but on top there has been implemented a graphical user interface so that a user easily can make use of it. What is it doing in that area? The Climate Tagger is allowing that you can push in documents, or that you take your documents, and documents are taken from several sources, from different content management systems or content repositories, and then they are plugged into the Climate Tagger. The system here is very similar to what Timea explained. In the middle there is a thesaurus, the Climate Tagger thesaurus. It's around 4,500 concepts in the meantime, or at the moment, in 5 languages. So it is in English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and German. And what happens is automatically this content that is pushed from different content repositories into the Climate Tagger is semantically annotated. And then this content can be interlinked or can be put into context. That means if content from one source that is about climate mitigation or a specific climate technology comes from one source, and from another source there is some document or some data coming in that is very similar and it's also related to mitigation, then this can be compared, it can be put in context, and the user then easily can get, for example, similar documents out of the system, or can also get recommended content. So what is in is a tagging engine. You can use it. By the way, the Climate Tagger is for free, but it's very specific on climate change development. You just have to register, and then you get an API key, and you can start going. And you can then put your content engine, your content management system in context with that overall system and get out semantic annotations, or you can then put it into context with other sources. And then you can also get a recommender, means you can say, I give you a document that is about photovoltaic, for example, and give me everything that is in the content pool of the Climate Tagger that is also about photovoltaic, for example, in the area of Tunisia or North Africa. And then you get the content back from other sources, or you can say, just give me everything about photovoltaic in North Africa that is relevant or coming from a specific source that is inside of the Climate Tagger, and thereby you can enrich your content, or you can just show similar content to your content, for example, inside your web application or your internal application. A second use case that we have in place based on a very similar approach in principle is the European Innovation Partnership on Water, EIP Water. You see the URLs here, and in all the slides you find the demos or the use cases also linked, and all of the 4s are open, so you can access it via the web. What we are here doing is we are calculating similarities, and we are calculating similarities between different objects with a very similar approach, just a little bit of different analytics and algorithms in the back. The system has people, projects, organizations, and products and services, all in the area of water innovation, and on basis of semantic annotation, like discussed and explained before, we are contextualizing all of these areas, And then you can say, okay, show me, for example, or match together people that are working in the financial area of water innovation in, let's say, Spain in Europe. Show me everybody that is working in that area, or show me projects that are relevant in Scandinavia or in the Netherlands that are on wastewater and that has been done in the last 2 years, and so on and so forth. So you can match together. It's also, I would say, a recommender across the different knowledge objects. So that means you can in principle apply that to every domain or industry and say, I have different knowledge objects, can be people, can be projects, can be technologies, and so on and so forth. And I would like to connect all that together, and then I would like to build an application on top that gives me technologies, that gives me documents that include specific technologies, and so on and so forth. So this is done here on the EIP on Water EU. And it's also very similar, just in the form of a semantic search at the CTCN, that's the Climate Technology Center and Network, located in Copenhagen, in Denmark. And the CTCN is harvesting, I think, around 25,000 articles from different sources at the moment. It's all about climate technology, and it is annotated by a knowledge model that has been developed by CTCN, and it's automatically, all these 25,000 articles are annotated on top of these knowledge model, and then we are contextualizing again all this information. And we have realized under ctcn.org/semantic search, or you come from the start page also very easily into the search area, as Timea showed, in a semantic search with facets that are about content types, about technologies, about UNFCCC related activities, and so on and so forth, and regions. You can say, I want to be up to date on all climate technologies in a specific area, with specific objectives, and so on and so forth. So here, integrating data coming from several different sources and integrating along one taxonomy, one knowledge model into a search application. And finally, the fourth here, because we're running a little bit out of time, it's very similar. It's just a different domain, and you also can take a look at it. It's healthdirect.gov.au for Australia, and healthdirect Australia is the, I would say, a governmental organization that has one of its objectives to provide trustworthy or trustful information about health across all Australia for all citizens, so it's publicly available. And they're harvesting more than 100 trusted sources and are doing it very similar like CTCN, but only on the health domain. They have built a comprehensive taxonomy, a knowledge model on the topic of health, and then they've integrated all of these sources, and they are providing a search application, but they are also providing, they call it, you see it here on the bottom right, a symptom checker that is based on top of the taxonomy, where you can stepwise, you're guided through a process, which symptoms that you have when you're ill, you're sick. And then stepwise, you're clicking buttons. I don't know, I have a running nose and I have headache, and so on and so forth. And at the end, the system gives you a very clear picture and a recommendation of what you should do. I tried it out once, and it said I should go to the doctor directly, immediately, as quick as possible. I think the reason was that I was not fully aware about the symptoms I was clicking. But you can try it out. So what you find here is that there is a logic that has been modeled also in the knowledge model, as Timea showed before, using custom schemas, so more ontologies, where relations between concepts are built and modeled. And then along that, you can build something like a symptom checker that guides you through a process of your symptoms, and at the end gives you then, on top of the selected symptoms, the action that you should take to go to the doctor, or just to take some drugs or pills, or everything is okay because you just have a cold, you don't have to worry, and so on and so forth. In Australia, it's a very interesting system, by the way, when you go through it, because they have animals that we here in Europe are not really used to. So spiders and scorpions and all that stuff you can find in here. and what you have to do, or it's then some actions that are recommended because of symptoms you have from a spider bite. Okay, so I think we're well in time. We took 45 minutes in total for that explanations. I'm a little bit sorry here, the slides are broken, but no matter. So if you're interested to learn more about PoolParty, there are several possibilities. If you're interested to learn more about semantic technologies, there is in place a system that we call PoolParty Academy. You have the link here. It's poolpartybiz/academy. And we have one semantic web or semantic technology training that is free for everybody, so you can easily register, and then you can learn more about semantic technologies. You see a little bit here, more about knowledge graphs and the value of consistent metadata, up to a little bit what is Sparkle, for example. It's the query language of semantic web and semantic data integration and so on and so forth. So just go to the Academy, register, and you can use the Academy 1 month for free. That's the first course we have in place. We have several others, but they then have a commercial fee to pay. But that means also when you're a PoolParty customer using PoolParty, you get Academy seats. So you have a training system that helps you in capacity building on semantic technologies and how to use PoolParty Semantic Suite. If you say, I would like to see more of that, or I would like to try out what Timea have shown before, in PoolParty it's very easy. You just go to PoolParty Biz and you go to demo or get started, and you can easily apply for a test account. And then you get your own PoolParty area where you can start creating projects, working on projects, and so on and so forth. And finally, I think we're through. Maybe, Timea, you would like to add something, but here are our contact details. So this is all from us. I hope we gave a good overview about what Semantic Web Company is doing with its core product that is PoolParty Semantic Suite. What can be done and what are the basics and also the challenges in the area of text extraction, text mining, and interlinking using knowledge models and knowledge graphs. And finally, we have seen